Last Valentine's Day was unlike any other for me. I was 32 years old and still reeling from my recent breakup. I didn't want to celebrate at my job, but my boss insisted on throwing a Valentine's party at our tech company. I worked as a marketing coordinator, and the office felt empty, like usual. Everyone seemed uninterested in the celebration. I sat at my desk, typing emails and planning for the holiday. That's when I noticed a small slip of paper slid under my office door. I picked it up and read it. It was a love note, written neatly and describing how someone admired me. I laughed it off, thinking it was a prank, and shoved it into my drawer. But then it happened again. Another note appeared, this one more detailed. It talked about my favorite coffee and how I used to sing in the shower. I felt a shiver run down my spine. How could someone know these things? I glanced around, expecting to see someone laughing, but everyone went about their business. As the day dragged on, more notes showed up. I lost count after 5. Each note was filled with personal details. My heart raced as I noticed Helen from accounting staring at me, her expression strange. Was she in on this? I felt watched and uncomfortable. That day was a blur. During lunch, I rushed to the break room to grab coffee. It felt heavy with tension, as if everyone was holding their breath. I overheard whispers that stopped when I walked in. Faces turned blank, and I felt completely exposed. I returned to my desk, trying to focus, but I kept darting my eyes to the door. I thought I saw someone lurking outside, but when I looked again, there was nothing. Maybe I was imagining it. I took a deep breath, but unease settled in my stomach. Then I found another note. This one was different. It asked why I was avoiding them, but had no signature. My skin prickled, and I glanced around my coworkers again. They still looked apprehensive. As I turned back to my monitor, I heard a whisper. "Why are you hiding from me?" My heart dropped. I whipped around, but there was nobody there. My stomach twisted, and I felt sick. I was trapped in that office with someone who knew too much about me. The clock ticked slowly, each second adding to my fear. I focused on my work to distract myself. I needed to get through this day, but with each passing moment, I felt myself slipping further into an anxiety spiral. When I finished the last of my tasks, I looked around the office again. All my coworkers were still, some pretending to work but glancing at me. I felt like a target. The notes kept coming, always signed "yours forever." I had to leave. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my bag and headed for the door, but a chill ran down my spine. What if they followed me? I had to escape that office. I had to get away from this nightmare that had begun with a few written words. I stepped out of my office, the door creaking behind me like a warning.
The hallway felt longer than usual, stretching out ahead and closing in around me. My heart pounded in my chest as I made my way toward the stairwell. I wanted nothing more than to escape the building. The quiet was unsettling. I noticed how the fluorescent lights hummed over me, almost mocking my anxiety. I hesitated before turning the corner, half convinced someone would be waiting there, ready to confront me. But it was empty. As I descended the stairs, I couldn't help but replay the notes in my mind. Who was doing this, and why? Even the thought of their attention left me feeling exposed. I reached the ground floor and could almost taste freedom. I pushed through the door leading to the parking lot, letting out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. But as I walked to my car, my hand froze on the door handle. There was a note tucked into my windshield wiper. I stumbled back, panic creeping in again. I slowly approached, heart racing, and pulled the note free. "I miss you more than you know," it read. My stomach twisted. I tore it into pieces and threw it away, but I knew deep down that wouldn't stop whoever was doing this. I got in my car and locked the doors, the engine rumbling to life. I drove out of the parking lot, glancing in the rearview mirror as if I might catch a glimpse of my stalker. No one followed me. Maybe I'd made it out. Or maybe they were waiting for me to let my guard down. Once I got home, I slammed the door and leaned against it, breathing heavily. My small apartment felt strangely safe, though that comfort was short-lived. I turned every light on, filling the space with brightness, as if that could chase away my anxiety. I dropped my bag on the kitchen table and finally allowed myself to think clearly. I fished my phone out, hoping to call a friend, but just as I picked it up, a notification popped up. An unknown number had sent me a message. "I hoped you'd come back to me." My hand shook as I read it. I couldn't understand. Had someone from work gotten my number, or was it someone entirely different? I felt trapped. There was no one I could trust. I quickly blocked the number, but I knew this wouldn't stop. With a sigh, I tried to calm my racing heart. I needed a way to find out who was behind this. I felt an urge to dig deeper. The thought of confronting the mystery gave me courage, even if it was fleeting. Then, as I sat on the couch, a noise shattered my thoughts, a soft thud against the window. My heart skipped a beat. I shot up and moved cautiously toward the sound, holding my breath. That's when I saw it, a note, fluttering gently against the glass. I recognized the handwriting. The words echoed in my mind, and dread pooled in my stomach. What if I was wrong? What if I was more entangled in this than I ever realized? I stood frozen, torn between fear and the strange desire to uncover the truth. I took a step back, my pulse racing. That handwriting was unmistakable. It belonged to Sarah from the office.
We had once been friends, but things had soured. I barely managed to keep my composure as I reached for the window and pulled the note inside. The paper was thin, crumpled, and warm from the day. I unfolded it carefully, hoping for something that would help explain her feelings. Instead, I read, "I know you're scared, but I'm here. You just need to listen." My breath hitched. Why would she say that? I hadn't spoken to her in months. The last time we interacted, she had accused me of betrayal over a promotion. Had she moved on from that, or was this some twisted game? I flung the note aside, irritation mingling with my fear. I didn't want to hear anything from her. I paced the small living room, my mind racing. It was too easy to jump to conclusions. Maybe I was overreacting. Still, I couldn't shake the clenching feeling in my stomach, that sense of being watched. That's when I spotted something gleaming on my kitchen counter. My heart plummeted as I approached, realizing it was my old photo frame. I hadn't thought much about it lately. It was a picture of Sarah and me at a company Christmas party, laughing and carefree. I must have knocked it over when I returned. But what caught my attention was the envelope sitting next to it. I flipped it over, my instinct screaming. It had no return address and was sealed tightly. My fingers trembled as I carefully opened it. Inside was yet another note, but this one felt different. The paper was thick, almost elegant. There was a single line scribbled in a slant. "I can protect you, but you have to trust me." I crumpled the note in my fist, panic bubbling up. Who were these people? I felt like a pawn in someone else's scheme. Had Sarah really been the one stalking me all along, or was this part of something larger? It didn't make sense. I shoved the note deep into my pocket and reached for my phone. I wanted to call Sarah, but fear held me back. What would I even say? I needed answers first. The anxiety coursing through me demanded that I take control. I called my best friend, Emma. It rang until her voicemail picked up. I was about to hang up when I thought I heard a noise from the hallway, a soft shuffle, followed by a creaking floorboard. My breath caught in my throat. I wasn't alone. With my heart racing, I stole a glance toward the door. I wasn't sure who or what was there, but I felt a presence, heavy and unsettling. I could hear my own heartbeat, drowning out the quiet hum of my apartment. Then the doorknob rattled. I pieced together that someone was on the other side. My pulse quickened as I scanned for something, anything to use for protection. I was terrified to find out who it was, but deep inside, an urge pushed me to face whatever waited just beyond the door. That's when I realized something crucial. Whoever was out there was not just watching, they were ready to confront me. I gripped the edge of the counter, my knuckles turning white. The rattling doorknob twisted again, this time more forcefully. Whoever it was clearly wanted in. My instinct screamed at me to run, to hide, but I couldn't just cower. Not now. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice shaky but loud enough to drown out the thumping of my heart. Silence answered back, thick and heavy. I pressed my ear against the door, straining to hear any movement. There was nothing but the sound of my own breath. Suddenly, I heard a faint whisper on the other side. "Let me in. You're not safe." It was Sarah. The realization chilled me. I felt a mixture of anger and undeniable fear. After everything, could she really think I would trust her? My fingers fumbled for my phone in my pocket, but I hesitated, wondering if calling the police would be overreacting. Before I could decide, the doorknob rattled again, more insistent this time. "Please," she pleaded, "you need to listen to me. I can help you." My breathing quickened. The notes, the sudden encounters, they all fit together like scattered puzzle pieces, but the picture was still unclear. I had to know what she wanted. With a deep breath, I unlocked the door and yanked it open. Sarah stood there, her face pale and drawn, eyes wide with urgency. My heart raced, caught between instinct and a desperate need for clarity. "What do you want?" I demanded, my voice steadier than I felt. "I know you've been getting notes," she replied, stepping into my apartment without waiting for permission. "It's worse than you think. There are people after you."
I recoiled slightly, her words echoing in my mind. What do you mean, people after me? I had to come, she said, glancing nervously toward the hallway. They've been following you since the promotion. I thought it was just workplace jealousy, but no. Stop, I interrupted, feeling trapped. Why should I believe you, after everything? I'm not here to make excuses. I'm here because you need me. Her voice wavered, and I could see the genuine fear in her eyes. She stepped closer. I know I messed up, but trust me, if you don't get out, you won't be safe. I hesitated, battling the remnants of misplaced trust against the urgency of my instincts. The envelope, the notes, they all seemed connected, but how could I know if her intentions were real? I'm not going anywhere with you, I said, trying to sound resolute. You're just as involved as they are. Her expression hardened. That's not true. I can help you figure this out. You have to trust me. Before I could respond, another sound interrupted us, a loud crash from the hallway, followed by footsteps. My heart raced again. Whoever was out there was still in my building, and it wasn't just the paranoia talking. Listen, we don't have much time, Sarah urged, her voice urgent. They're closer than you think. In that moment, something clicked. I didn't just feel fear. I felt a creeping dread, as if everything was spiraling out of control.
Then, without warning, the lights flickered and went out, plunging us into darkness. The shadows around us felt alive, and I could have sworn I heard someone breathing behind me. Get down, Sarah shouted, pulling me away from the door. I didn't even know who to trust anymore, but there was no time to dwell on that now. The game just got serious, and I was smack in the middle of it. I fell to the floor as Sarah pushed me away from the door, our bodies hitting the ground just as a loud bang echoed through the hallway. The sound reverberated in my chest, sending chills down my spine. I barely had time to process the chaos when Sarah whispered urgently, "We need to move." "Where?" I asked, panic rising in my throat. "Anywhere but here." Her eyes darted around the dimly lit room, searching for an escape. "The back exit. Follow me." I hesitated, heart pounding against my ribcage, but it was clear I had no other choice. I nodded, grasping Sarah's arm for support as we crept toward the kitchen entrance. The darkness felt thick around us, an oppressive wall that pressed against my skin. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like thunder in the stillness. We moved slowly, trying to avoid making any noise. My thoughts raced. What did Sarah know? Why were these people after me? Questions spun in my mind, but fear drowned out everything else. Just as I reached the doorway, I caught a glimpse of a shadow moving in the hallway, a tall figure, barely illuminated by the flickering emergency lights. I froze, fear rooting me to the spot. "What? Who is that?" I whispered, gripping Sarah's arm tighter. "Just keep quiet," she hissed. The figure stepped into the light. It was a man in a dark coat, his features obscured, but I could see a glint of something metallic in his hand. A weapon. My pulse raced. He was armed, and I was completely unprepared. When he turned, my stomach dropped at the sight of his face. It was John, a colleague from work. He wore a grim expression, and his eyes scanned the area with a predatory focus. "What do we do?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Back away," Sarah urged, pulling me toward the kitchen. "We can't let him see us." I nodded, every instinct screaming at me to run, to escape. Just as we stepped back into the kitchen, the sound of footsteps grew louder, echoing through the narrow hall. I knew he was getting closer. Then everything went dark again. The emergency lights flickered and went out, plunging us into total blackness. I could barely see my own hand in front of my face. My heart raced as I crouched lower, feeling my breath quicken in the silence. "We need to get out now." Sarah grabbed my wrist. Her grip was firm, grounding me for a split second before she began to tug me away from the door. In that moment, a sickening noise shattered the silence. A crash, like something heavy falling or being thrown. I flinched, an icy dread settling in. I wanted to scream or run, but all I could do was follow Sarah blindly. Suddenly, I heard a voice pierce through the darkness. It was low and menacing. "I know you're in there. You're not getting away." That's when I felt it, a presence behind me, breathing heavy against my neck. "Run!" Sarah yelled, pulling me in the direction of the back exit. We stumbled toward the door, and as I turned the knob, panic surged through me. Would we make it out? Would we be caught? I had no idea what we were running from or where we'd end up, but I couldn't stay here, not now. As the door swung open, something sharp flashed in the darkness. I gasped, but there was no turning back. The moment to escape was now, but the shadows were closing in. As I stumbled through the door, the cool air outside hit me like a wave of relief and fear. We burst onto the back alley, the dim glow of a streetlight flickering ahead. I glanced back, half expecting John to leap after us, but the door stayed shut, the shadows doing their best to hide whatever nightmares lay inside. "Where do we go now?" I asked, trying to catch my breath. Sarah didn't respond. Her eyes were wide, scanning the street for anyone or anything. "Just run," she said, and without waiting for me, she dashed toward the end of the alley. I dove after her, my legs heavy with adrenaline. We rounded a corner and stumbled onto a quiet street, lined with abandoned buildings. The city felt different at this hour, eerily silent, and any sound we made echoed. I felt exposed, like our frantic escape was a beacon for danger. "What were those noises?" I panted as we pushed forward. "And why was John?" "I don't know," she snapped, her tone sharp but anxious. "But we can't stop to figure it out. They're coming for you." My heart sank at her words. I couldn't grasp what she meant. Who was coming? Why? What did I do? "Let's focus on getting to safety first," she said, slowing down to catch her breath. We made the next turn. I spotted a parking garage and pointed toward it. "We could hide there." "Good idea," she said, and we darted toward the entrance. The garage was dimly lit, the scent of oil and concrete filling the air. We slipped inside, the heavy metal door clanging shut behind us. The shadows loomed large in the parking area. I pressed against the wall, heart racing as we stood in the silence. "What now?" "We wait," Sarah whispered, leaning against the concrete pillar. I glanced around, my anxiety bubbling again. "Wait for what? We can't just stay here forever. John's not just some random guy." "That's exactly it." She looked at me with intensity. "He knows things about you, things I didn't have time to explain." "Like what?" Before she could answer, a noise echoed from the entrance, the metallic clang of a boot on concrete. I held my breath, fear crawling back into every corner of my mind. "Who's there?" a voice called out. It wasn't John's, but it was unmistakably searching. My body tensed. Sarah squeezed my arm so tight it hurt. "Stay quiet," she hissed.
Peering out from behind our hiding place, I squinted into the dim light. A figure stepped into view. It was another man, scanning the garage with the same predatory focus. His left hand rested on a weapon similar to John's, his stance confident. "Come out," he shouted, voice low but commanding. "We know you're in here." I shoved back against the wall, my mind racing to find a way out. That's when I noticed something on the ground, scraps of folded paper scattered along the concrete. I picked one up, a chill running down my spine as I opened it, my hands trembling. I couldn't believe it. It was a note. The handwriting was familiar. The words made little sense, but one line stood out clear as day. "I'm sorry for what happened on Valentine's." Then I heard him, the man, moving closer, searching and closing in. My heart raced. If he found us, we'd be trapped. "Sarah," I whispered, my voice barely there. "I think I know who he is." Before she could reply, the sound of footsteps stopped, and an unsettling silence filled the air. The hunter had become the hunted. "We need a plan," I said, adrenaline pumping as the man moved, his shadow stretching dangerously close. The silence hung thicker than the dark, and I felt my stomach knot as I watched the man scanning the garage. His eyes darted across the rows of abandoned cars, searching, calculating. "What do we do?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "We need to get to the stairs," Sarah breathed, her eyes locked on the distant exit. "If we can reach the upper levels, we might find a way out." I nodded, though I felt paralyzed with fear. The footsteps had stopped, but I could sense the tension in the air. Every second we spent hiding felt like a million. "I'll create a distraction," Sarah said suddenly, her grip on my arm loosening. "You go first." "Are you crazy?" "I'm not leaving you," I shot back, fighting to keep my voice down. "Just trust me," she insisted, her expression fierce with determination. "I'll follow after. One way or another, we'll make it out of here." Before I could protest, she slipped away from where we hid, moving along the far wall towards a stack of old tires and paint cans. My heart raced as I watched her. I felt like I was glued to the floor. Then Sarah took a deep breath and kicked a can, sending it clanging to the ground. The noise shattered the quiet like glass. "Hey," the man shouted, clearly irritated. He pivoted, eyes narrowing as he honed in on the sound. "Go," Sarah yelled, and I did just that. I bolted from my hiding place, sprinting toward the concrete stairwell on instinct, my feet pounding like a drum. I could hear the man cursing behind me, the sound driving urgency into my strides. I slammed my hand on the door as I reached it, adrenaline fueling my fears. I didn't look back. I shoved the door open and rushed up the stairs 2 at a time. My instinct screamed that the moment I stopped, I'd be caught. When I finally reached the second floor, I pressed my back against the wall, trying to catch my breath. I peered over the railing to see if the man followed. The garage below was empty now, but I didn't think we were in the clear. "Sarah," I called, anxiety creeping into my voice. "Where are you?" "Up here," she whispered fiercely, as she emerged from the shadows of the stairwell, breathless but unharmed. My relief washed over me like a wave. "What was that noise? Did he—" "No time. I heard him moving. We have to find a way out." We crept toward the end of the corridor, searching for an exit sign. My mind raced back to the note I found earlier. "I'm sorry for what happened on Valentine's." What did it mean? Did it connect to this? To the man chasing us? The moment I caught a glimpse of the exit door, I heard it. The unmistakable sounds of footsteps making their way up the stairs again. The man was not far behind.
"Run!" I hissed, and we dashed for the door. I yanked it open, bursting into the cool night air outside. We stumbled onto the street, my lungs burning with effort. I turned to face Sarah. "We need to get away from here, fast!" That's when I noticed something out of the corner of my eye, a figure in the darkness, lurking, watching. "Sarah, look!" I pointed, dread pooling in the pit of my stomach. But before she could turn, the shadows stepped into the faint glow of a streetlight. My breath caught in my throat. It was John. "John?" I stammered, my heart racing as confusion coiled within me. His expression was unreadable, a mix of relief and worry. "Are you two okay?" he asked, stepping closer. The streetlight illuminated his face, revealing sweat on his brow. "I saw you running. What happened?" I opened my mouth to explain, but Sarah cut in, her voice sharp. "What are you doing here, John? You shouldn't be out at night." "I could ask you the same," he shot back. "Listen, we need to go. That guy you were running from, he's probably looking for you right now." Before I could register the fear curling in my gut, distant shouts echoed from the garage. The man was onto us. "Who is he?" I asked urgently, glancing at Sarah, then back at John. "What does he want?" "I don't know," John replied, his voice low, "but I think he's connected to the old office rumor, the one about the Valentine's incident." "What incident?" Sarah pressed, her eyes darting down the street, straining to catch sight of the threat. John hesitated, as if weighing whether to share more. "There were whispers about someone who got hurt. They found a note at the scene, something similar to what you found." He nodded toward me. I felt a chill run down my spine. "What did it say?" "I never saw it myself, but they said it was a love letter, short but twisted. It had something about sorry. That's all I remember." The footsteps grew louder, edging closer. Our time was running out. "We need to get away,"
I said, urgency escalating in my voice as I scanned our surroundings. "Over here!" John shouted as he led us to a narrow alley. It was a tight fit, but we squeezed through, the walls closing in around us. I could hear our pursuer now, the pace steady and relentless. "It's too close," I whispered, panic gripping me. "What if he finds us?" John pressed against the wall, glancing back. "We'll figure it out. Just hold on." I nodded, trying to focus, but the weight of uncertainty crashed over me. I thought of that note and what it meant. Could it connect to whatever was happening now? Suddenly, I spotted a glimmer, a metal doorknob at the end of the alley, half covered in ivy. "There!" I pointed, hope flickering. John and Sarah exchanged glances. "Let's go!" John urged, and we rushed toward it. My heart raced as we neared the door, my fingers trembling as I reached for the handle. But as I twisted it, a loud bang echoed behind us. The man's voice taunted from the shadows. "You can't run forever." The door flew open, revealing a dark room beyond. My instincts kicked in, and I leaped inside, pulling Sarah and John with me. I shut the door just in time, pressing my back against it as I tried to catch my breath, fear coursing through me. We stood still, listening. "Are we safe?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "The door," I hesitated. "It won't hold him for long." Then everything went dark. I blinked, adjusting to the pitch black. My heart pounded loudly in my ears. I could hear Sarah's shallow breaths beside me, and John's tense form pressed against the door. I whispered, "Can anyone see anything?" "No," John replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "We need to find a light." Before I could respond, I heard shuffling sounds. It felt like the walls were closing in, the silence amplifying every creak and scrape. I held my breath, waiting for a sign. Suddenly, I felt something pulled against my hand. My fingers brushed over a rough surface, and I instinctively pulled my hand back. "What is this?" "Probably just junk," John said. "Be careful, we don't know where we are." I moved my other hand along the wall, and it led me to what felt like a switch. I hesitated. Should I turn it on? "Do it," John urged. "We need to know what we're dealing with." With a quick flick, the faint glow from a flickering bulb filled the room. A musty smell hit my nose, and my stomach twisted at what I saw. The room was small, cluttered with stacks of papers, dusty boxes, and rusty tools strewn about. I stepped back, feeling a wave of panic. This doesn't feel right. "We'll search for a way out," John reassured me, but even he sounded uncertain. As we rummaged through the clutter, my eyes latched onto something in the corner. A small table was covered with more papers. I moved toward it, drawn by a strange intuition. When I reached it, I froze. There, right on top, was a note, similar to the one I had found before. I lifted it cautiously, glancing at John, who was dinging through an old toolbox, and Sarah, who nervously paced behind us. I unfolded it slowly, my hands trembling. "Read it," Sarah urged, coming closer. It said, "I'm sorry for what happened. I didn't want it to end this way. Please forgive me. Yours, V." I swallowed hard. "Who is V?" John paused and turned to me, a pained expression on his face. I don't know, but it sounds like it's connected to that incident. But why is it here? I asked, scrambling for answers. That's when I saw it, John interjected, pointing to the wall next to me. With the faint light, I saw a faded mark, a silhouette of something that looked like a heart. I felt bile rise in my throat. This is what he's after. This note. A loud bang came from the door, jolting us. All our heads snapped toward it. "He's getting in," Sarah shouted in a panicked whisper. "We need to move. Now," John insisted. We surged toward a small window high above the floor, but it was covered with rusted bars. It felt like an impossible escape. "We can't stay here," I said, glancing back at the door. But John was already yanking on the window, desperation in his voice. "Help me!" Then, beneath the sound of our frantic efforts, another noise pierced through, the soft, sinister echo of a voice. "Did you miss me?" I felt my heart drop. My breath caught in my throat, paralyzed by the chilling familiarity of that voice. I didn't need to look to know who it was. The feeling of dread washed over me like cold water. "It's him," I whispered, my heart racing as panic surged through my veins. "Keep pulling," John urged, grabbing my shoulders and shaking me from the grip of fear. I turned back to the window, but my fingers trembled as I fought against the bars. Every second felt like an eternity as the metal of the door rattled beneath the force of someone pushing against it. "I can't," I gasped, desperation entwining my words, but the sound of splintering wood cut me short. Just then, a flicker of light caught my eye. I glanced over as John struggled with the window latch. He twisted it fiercely, his determination palpable, urging me to keep the focus on escaping rather than the looming threat behind us. I gathered my breath, leaning into the effort. "Just a little more," I urged with each attempt, as if our lives depended on it, because they did. "Got it!" John's triumphant shout pierced through the air, just as the door burst open, flying off its hinges. We didn't think, just moved. John shoved the window wide, the rusty hinges creaking in protest. I jumped up, grabbing the edge with both hands. "Go! Get out!" I shouted at Sarah, urgency spilling from my lips. She hesitated, glancing back over her shoulder, the terror in her eyes raw and real. "What if—" "No what-ifs," I barked, fear cracking my voice. "You need to trust me." She nodded, eyes widening as the shadowy figure loomed in the doorway. Okay.
Pushing myself up onto the ledge, I hoisted Sarah out the window first, then dropped to the ground below. The chill of the night air hit me, but adrenaline kept me warm. I looked up as Sarah scrambled out after me, and we fell to the side. "Now, John!" I yelled, the panic rising again, as I watched him maneuver through. But then the figure stepped into the light. John froze. In that moment, I felt his hesitation, his fear. The man behind him was filled with dark intent, a man with a weapon glinting in hand. "You can't escape," he said coolly, eyes locked onto John like a predator. "Run!" I screamed, as terror ricocheted through my body. John jolted, finally breaking free from his stupor. "I'm coming!" he shouted, kicking off the wall and launching himself through the opening just as a shot rang out. The sound was sharp and echoed through the alleyway, a thunderous intrusion on the cool night. My heart stopped. I was frozen, fear paralyzing my limbs, but Sarah's grasp around my arm yanked me back into action. "Move!" she shrieked, pulling me away as I glanced back at John. He was tumbling out the window, landing awkwardly, but safe enough. I could still hear the man behind shouting, "Stop! You can't run far enough!" The moment John hit the ground, we took off, sprinting as fast as we could down the alley, heart pounding in sync with our hurried footsteps. The darkness around us felt alive with the shadows of uncertainties chasing relentlessly after us. "Where to?" John gasped, glancing left and right, searching for refuge. "Anywhere, just away!" I shouted, desperation fueling my legs. Around the corner, I spotted a brightly lit diner across the street, its neon sign flickering with false comfort. "In there!" I pointed, and we veered off, bursting through the front door ardently, desperate for safety and answers. Inside, customers glanced up, eyes wide, faces laden with confusion. The heavy aroma of coffee clung to the air, mingling with the noise of casual chatter. I pushed us to the counter, leaning against it heavily while my vision darted toward the entrance, waiting for the confrontation to spill in. "Are we safe?" John asked, breathless, his brow lined with concern. I think so," I stammered, searching for the words. The last thing I wanted was to provoke the hunter still lurking outside. But then, as if summoned by my thoughts, the door swung wide, the bells tinkling ominously. I took a sharp intake of breath, dreading what stood on the other side. The man stepped in. I could hardly breathe, my heart thudding painfully in my chest. He looked around casually, the dangerous glint in his eye betraying his intentions. There was no sign of retreat in his body language. "Do you think you're safe in here?" he called out, voice almost casual, as if we were sharing an intimate space rather than a hunting ground. With trembling hands, Sarah leaned closer to me, whispering with urgency, "What do we do? He's here." I swallowed hard, adrenaline coursing through me. "We have to face him," I murmured back, the words slipping out before I could reconsider. "Are you crazy?" John hissed, eyes wide. "He's got a gun!" "I know," I snapped, no longer able to contain my urgency. "But we need answers. We can't keep running." The man moved slowly, deliberately, as if he enjoyed the anticipation he was building. "You really want to know?" he taunted, eyes gleaming with dark amusement. "Why?" I shouted, the words burning in my throat. "What do you want from us?" A dark smile stretched across his lips, glancing at us in turn. "You're more involved in this than you realize. The notes, they were just the beginning." "Beginning of what?" John demanded, stepping forward defiantly. But the man laughed, a low, sinister chuckle. "All in due time. The past has a way of coming back for you." During his amusement, it dawned on me. There was something in the way he spoke, something familiar mingling with dread. The pieces weren't fitting yet, but they shifted in my mind, forming the outline of a darker picture. And just like that, he turned to leave. "Run along, sweethearts. The game isn't over yet." "Wait!" I called, desperation in my voice as he slipped back into the night. But it was too late. He was gone, disappearing as swiftly as he'd arrived. We stood silent amidst the diner's chaos. Whispers gathered, eyes darted. "What was that about?" Sarah whispered shakily. "I don't know," I replied, trying to focus despite the fraying edges of my mind. "But we can't pretend we're safe. We need to figure out how this connects to whatever happened on Valentine's." John nodded, and I could see the wheels turning in his mind. "Maybe there's a way to confront the past," he offered, voice steadier than before. I took a moment, feeling the weight of the notes hidden in my pocket, now feeling like chains. We weren't just woven into this story. We were tangled in something far deeper, something that could hurt us if we didn't face it together. But even with a semblance of unity among us, the mystery remained. What truly haunted us? Was it a person, a lesson from the past, or some nameless force hidden in the shadows? The questions echoed as the diner buzzed around us, and I knew deep down that no matter how far we ran, we couldn't escape the truth. The fear would linger long after this night, a constant reminder that some things were never truly resolved. As I slowly turned toward Sarah and John, anchoring myself amidst the uncertainty, I felt a growing resolve. Together, we would face whatever lay ahead. We had to. But the lingering question remained. At what cost?